Good evening and welcome back to the SG Live Link to the Past Randomizer Tournament. We've got a great matchup for you tonight in round one of the brackets. We have a David versus Goliath matchup with Kyong, one of our international winners who qualified at the top of the rankings, versus VortexofDoom, a 2020 Go Mode Podcast Mentor Tournament veteran who made it through qualifiers. Both of these runners have made it through groups and are now facing off in round one. I'm joined in the booth tonight by Esmar. Welcome, Esmar.
Yeah, hello. This is going to be an interesting match. I have some personal insights on Vortex. He's my brother, and I can tell you that at the beginning of 2020, I was by far a better rando player than he was, as he'd barely touched it at the start of the year, and he's been grinding away basically all year. And he's become quite the formidable opponent here. He took down Lin earlier on in this bracket, I think.
In the group stage, yeah.
Yeah, which was quite the upset. It was a fantastic match, even if you know the outcome. I'd highly recommend you give it a watch if you can. I believe it's a VOD on SpeedGaming too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Vortex is, he's been putting a lot of time in. Kyong is well established in the community. Vortex has taken a few people by surprise, I think, with his rise through the ranks. Doing well on the ladder, doing well in this tournament. He did well in the mentor tournament. Really putting in the hours to try to become recognized as one of the top runners in the game. So I'm interested to see what happens here. I think Vortex's mindset is still of a relative newcomer, so we'll see if he's willing to, if he's going to take some risks here, maybe, do some interesting routing to try to get an edge.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Vortex to play that super, I'm very confident in my game, I'm going to be really thorough in my execution sort of style that we've seen some runners do. There that can end up biting you, if you decide to skip the one check. That's the one thing you need that one time. But on the whole, it's generally going to win you more races than it's going to lose. So playing down to your opponents is a real danger sometimes for these experienced runners. They're too thorough.
Yeah, and we'll see. Kyong is solid all around. I expect him to just sort of play his game and rely on execution to get him through. I think these top guys, they generally don't worry too much about a rando seed biting them. They're gonna make the skips they normally make. He's gonna, just hope that his superior execution gets him through. So this should be a good matchup. I'm excited.
Yeah, I believe I'm not sure on the format. We have the boots, but no sword. Is this standard boots or open boots?
Nope, this should be a open boots. So they will start with the boots. They won't have a sword. They'll have their choice of Link's House or Sanctuary to start, and we should see what their choice is any minute now. We'll see if we've got an Uncle start from Vortex. He looks like he got a little bit quicker start than Kyong there. I'm not sure what happened, but Kyong's also going to start off at Link's House. This is kind of the typical route for open boots to head over to Sahasrara. These Octoroks, the rocks that they shoot out actually count as enemies as far as triples are concerned. So this is a pretty good opening route where they'll be able to get a higher tier triple to begin with.
Yeah, I believe we just had a little bit of stream delay. Yeah, Vortex was paused there for just a second there just to get these streams synced up.
Yeah, so big thanks to Feasel, our restreamer, and a thanks in advance to Art, our tracker tonight. They are doing the real hard work, as Marnar just get to have fun watching the race and talking about it.
And we see Boomerang, Quake, and Bombs. Not a bad haul early game. I would expect a quit to Sanctuary at this point.
Yeah, in particular, the Boomerang and the Bombs are a nice combo to get to start out, and that lamp means that we're not going to have to worry about any dark rooms this seed. So with those bombs, they won't have to worry too much about farming triples, rupee crabs, trying to kill enemies. They'll have the bombs they need to go into Kekariko and clear out the well, Blind's hut, and the chicken hut.
Got both boomerangs showing up. No weapons, strictly speaking, yet. We'd like to see at least something before we get out of Kakariko, just to make, Mini Moldorm Cave a lot more doable rather than having to, use the bomb strats.
Yeah, bomb strats are doable, though not preferable, and, well, we'll have plenty of bombs with the pickles in the bomb pack there. Or that was the stun prize, was 8 bombs. So no problems with bombs the whole rest of the seed if Vortex thinks to check the stun prize. And nothing of note on the lumberjack, just a piece of heart.
And both runners knowing that, that doesn't really change much. It's a nice thing to do, though, when you've got the boots, and the lamp, most importantly, showing up, because that's one more thing that would put Egan in the logic.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually for a lot of runners, boots start is enough.
Yeah, both runners taking that money. The 300 for sure is a gimme. It's a little bit out of the way, but for 300, because it's definitely worth it. Vortex might opt to skip the 20, but yeah, he does.
Yeah, there are a number of things to save up for early in the seed. Taking the time to pick up the 20, it's kind of a coin flip at that point.
Ooh, Vortex gets a different tier of tree pull there and is rewarded with a nice, let's see if I can do my math quick, 80 rupees.
Yeah, and a much faster set of 20s than the pickup would be in the Lost Woods hideout.
Meanwhile, in Blind's hut, we find, most importantly, a bottle, which is very convenient, since we can check Sick Kid before we leave, rather than having to route it back in later.
Yeah, I'm a lazy runner. I like to see the bottle, the flute, give me all the stuff that I need to fully clear out the village my first trip through.
Yeah, I'd ask for the flute, generally. I feel a little greedy asking for the flute.
Yeah, that's fair. There are 4 bottles and only 1 flute.
Yeah, Vortex deciding to, he has enough money, decides to save the time, not get all 6 of those pots down there. And there's our first sword in the back of the well.
Yeah, so like you said, that'll make Mini Moldorm Cave a lot easier. That'll make just the whole beginning of this seed a whole lot easier. There's nothing wrong with seeing a sword 4 minutes in.
Yeah, you're never too worried about doing bomb Mini Moldorm, but it's just one less opportunity to lose time if you screw it up.
Yeah, and with the number of hearts they have so far and picking up powder from the bottle merchant, they've got quite a bit of safety in hand already at a very early mark in this seed.
Yeah, so Kyong is just a few checks away from finishing out this town area.
Yeah, and if I'm Kyong at this point, and I feel like I've got an execution advantage, then seeing the early hearts, the early sword, the powder, those aren't things I would want to see necessarily. If you're leaning on your execution, you want that to be a little more difficult.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to pull off a 3-heart green male fighter sword Mothula fight, for instance, if that opportunity presents itself. If you're confident to execute that, then your opponent might not be, and that can be a really nice time save for you. Kyong deciding to blind check the race game.
Yeah, maybe not finding a whole lot of progression inside of CAC. He's feeling like there's a higher chance of getting something here. With boots, it is a faster check doing blind.
Yeah, but both of them are going to see that piece of heart and decide they don't need it. And just like that, a lot of that time has been made up. Vortex only 4 or 5 seconds behind now.
Yeah, it looks like Esmar heading right up to Uncle in front of Escape, as well as Vortex. So, lockstep so far.
Yeah, and this play makes sense, especially with the lamp putting the Dark Cross and Back of Escape in logic. We haven't seen the gloves yet, so that's our only logical way to access that. If the key is locked in the back, then we can't get back there at all. However, the chest here does contain the Moon Pearl, so that's a really nice thing to not put off here.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of checks here, this is the highest density locations for sure with that lamp putting the whole of the sewer section in logic.
Yeah, you can make an argument for the South Shore being higher density, but just because this is, sort of a mini dungeon in itself, there's a lot of downtime between a lot of the chests. But this one's also, because of that, is a little harder to come back to.
Yeah, there's never a great time to route in front of escape.
And there's always a great time to route it in South Shore. Even if you can get away with putting it off until really late. And that's nice. We see we do see that small key, so we can get all the way back. So this is looking like the right play.
Vortex taking some hits there, not a bad thing given that they are likely going to be death warping downstairs.
Yeah, unless the mirror shows up in that last chest. We do get the Master Sword here.
Yeah, which puts Aga directly into logic.
Yeah,
probably not what these guys wanted to see.
Yeah, especially with that Moon Pearl having shown up. And with neither glove nor hammer having shown up yet. It's not looking great for Aga being. People always say Aga's dead, but it's literally usually the opposite.
Yeah, I always wondered what happened to Aga in the case of a seed where we don't beat Aga 1. I guess he just heads up to Ganon's tower with a little more swagger.
Yeah, and in fast Ganon seeds, I assume he just continues his reign as King of Hyrule.
Very well could be. So we see Kyong and Vortex both heading to the back here. Got to dodge a few rats and snakes, and then we'll get 4 more checks.
Yeah, so Kyong has extended his lead a little bit here. Sort of what we expected. Just a piece of heart and Dark Cross. Pretty soon, I imagine we're gonna start seeing that divergence. We'll probably see South Shore through possibly the Flippers checks, out of logic, of course. But then, if the gloves show up, you can go up the mountain. But at what point, this sort of becomes the game of chicken, right? At what point do you decide to go up Aghanim's tower?
Yeah, it's a tough decision.
I'd say.
Yeah, hookshot and flippers would get you access to all of the Dark World. At this point, if you were to, you wanted to make the gamble to go do Ag, it's not a great play because you really only have access to Palace of Darkness without any of the items you really need to beat it.
Yeah, or really get much of anywhere in it. With the bottle, you can break the logic and go the bow-locked side, but yeah, right now you'd like to see either hammer or hookshot before you decide to commit to that play. Get our 3rd sword in the dam. Hopefully Vortex remembers to actually drain the water out this time.
Yeah, that is not a mistake you see very often. But the interesting thing about this game is the more you play it, the more you find new places to make mistakes, and even the top runners will make mistakes that you wouldn't think they'd make in a million years. But every once in a while, there's just something that's a blind spot for that day.
Okay, so this is a little interesting. Kyong is deciding to get Agina's cave out of the way right away here. Vortex making the same play.
Yeah, again,
I think they're going to do their due diligence before going up Aga's tower. On this time to go do this.
Yeah, I think it's similar to Front of Escape. There's not a great time to do Agina's Cave. The closest you're going to be is after you drain that dam. You might as well get it checked out of the way if you're looking for Dark World access. If they had the hammer or the hookshot, like you said, I don't think they would be checking Agina.
I'm the style of runner where in this situation I would just skip Agina's Cave, and just go up Aga's Tower before even checking it, especially with the possibility of it without having glove or hammer. But as I say, that Agina's Cave does have the glove in it, so it's to me that looks like clairvoyant magic, but it really is a reasonable play to go and check Agina's Cave right after that.
Yeah, for sure, and they both got the glove now. We are one item away from Dark World access, with quite a few checks left.
Yeah, that glove isn't the best thing you'd like to see if hammer doesn't show up here, just because you can get to catfish, and that's about it. That's the only way it extends the lead, or it extends your reach into the Dark World after Aga. So both of these runners still want to see that hammer.
Yeah, hammer or hookshot, that not only extends where they could go in the Dark World, it also puts more of the mountain in logic. The hookshot especially would put all of East Death Mountain in logic.
That glove also does put the Zora check properly in logic, King Zora. It's often the only of the flipper checks that you route in with those flipper routes that's in logic, but it's actually not in logic until you have the glove.
Yeah, and convenient with the Moon Pearl here, they can set up the water walk, make a few of these flipper checks a little bit faster.
Yeah, we're seeing Kyong take advantage of having that Moon Pearl, because to go up here and check Hobo, it's really nice and fast with the water walk. But the problem with it is you have to sacrifice the water walk to do it, since you can only set up a fake flipper afterwards. But with the Moon Pearl, you can set up another one by the Waterfall Fairies waterfall.
Yeah, and a great moment, the SG Live having the cameras on. We had a great moment on Vortex's side there. He used his last bomb to open Ice Rod Cave, got the 10 bomb pack, and was very visibly pleased by the fact that he got his bombs instantly refilled as soon as he ran out. I think this adds an interesting wrinkle to this. I think a lot of people watching this have seen a lot of rando races restreamed, but having the cameras here so you can really see the reactions when things go well, when things don't go well, I think it adds to the tension and the drama of the match.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's kind of obvious to say, but it does add that little human element. You get a face, not just gameplay. Now we've seen those are the bombs. We've got King Zora and 2 logical checks on the mountain, and I think that's it.
Yeah, things are, as many checks as they had leaving Agina, they've covered them pretty quickly and are coming up dry, so it's looking more and more like this has Aga potential.
That's exactly why it's great that they checked Agina when they did, because if they'd gotten this far, they'd have to consider, okay, do I go back to Agina or just bite the bullet, hope it's nothing, and do Aga 1? At this point, again, like if I'd skipped it earlier, I probably would choose to continue to skip it because I'd still be 2 items away from Dark World access, so nothing that I could find in there would save me at this point. But at that point, I'd be cheating myself out of those very early accessible gloves. Probably end up getting my mitts in there or something.
Yeah, you don't want to orphan a pair of gloves. That is an easy way to lose a ton of time in one of these races. Yeah, I was curious to see if Vortex was gonna skip these 2 mountain checks and just go right for Aga, at this point in the seed, you have to be thinking it's definitely an Aga seed. But you know, it takes some amount of guts to leave a couple of those checks to try to make up a little bit of time.
Yeah, especially you know, looking for one item for Dark World access and leaving 2 up here. And yeah, it's nothing. So this would be a situation where you know, leaving it would save you a little bit of time. But the alternative thing here is you get this save and quit point, which is going to be handy later on, because you have to imagine one of our next items is very likely going to be the hook shot.
Yeah, it's got to be the hook shot or the hammer. That's the only way to jailbreak that East Dark World.
Yeah, and if it's the hammer, then you're mirror away from mountain access, and if it's the hook shot, then you know you have right side mountain access. Either way, it's nice to have that save and quit point. So you may as well get 2 checks and the save and quit point rather than trying to just save the time, because you never know, it might lose you time later.
Yeah, although I think these are the opportunities that Vortex should be looking for to save time here, right? To make up that execution gap. If you can make a gamble here and there that has the potential. Now this one, you know, had the potential to cost you a very significant amount of time if you're wrong. So maybe this is not the right location, but I think that, you know, he should really be looking for these opportunities.
Yeah, I imagine we'll see that a lot more as the seed opens up, because right now it's been, you know, very linear. It's very obvious here now that, you know, we're last locationing something in the Dark World here, whether it's on the pyramid or on Catfish, or I guess in the front of Pod. But once we get into the Dark World proper, then we're going to get to see some routing options. We're going to get to see, you know, decisions on what we do and do not do.
Yeah, although I think that once they do get access to the rest of the Dark World, you know, Skull Woods is an obvious target. You know, you can head over there and clear that, assuming that it's a crystal. There's a pretty good likelihood that it'll be a crystal. Thieves Town would be full clearable if it's a crystal. So I think we'll see these guys as soon as they get access, head pretty quickly to the Village of Outcasts. There's something about these seeds where you haven't had access to clear a crystal. You just want to get the first one on the books. Yeah, so interestingly, there are some checks that these guys did leave in the Light World. All of Eastern Palace, aside from the boss, is accessible to them. So they are, you know, potentially leaving 3 items on the table in going to Aga here. If there's a hammer or another set of gloves in Eastern Palace, then this Aga is not required.
Yeah, it is quite a dip to take. Of the Light World dungeons, Eastern Palace is probably the worst one to dip into and have to come back to later. We actually might have seen a dip from one of the runners if it had been a pendant, just because the potential cost of having to come back later wouldn't have been nearly as great.
In fact, I've seen some runners who have talked about going into Eastern Pendant on an open boots right away. Just go right to Sahad, tip the front of Eastern as part of that opening sequence. You don't really need any weapons to check all of those items.
We're going to get a look at one of our chances for redemption here. Looks like we have Green Pendant Thieves Town and a Pendant Pod. So I imagine if Kyong knows his randomizer folklore meta, we'll go straight to Pod here. Okay, decides not to be superstitious. However, everyone knows that there is always an item in Pendant Pod.
There always is, unless you really need it to be there. In this case, it's pretty hard for it not to be Pod, right? The pyramid did not have the answer. We got 1 check at Catfish. Otherwise, it's got to be Pod.
And all joking aside, you do check Catfish first here because it's fairly quick to get back to Pod from a save and quit after defeating Aga. Oh, misses the rock throw into the pond, trying to get just the tiniest pixel inside.
Yeah, and he wasn't even going anywhere near that. He was pretty sure, as I think we all were, that pod is the answer here. Did not expect catfish to have anything of value, and sure enough, he was right. Didn't even spend the time to walk those couple of pixels higher up.
So I have a question here. Do you happen to know if it's faster to walk back here or to save and quit and go and take the portal in front of the castle?
You know, I don't know. I like to make lists of these sort of things to time for myself, and that's a good one to try to figure out which one is faster. I think it's probably pretty close, but my gut would say that save and quit would be faster. So, again, closing that gap at the expense of orphaning that catfish check. So that's an example of one of those gambles. You know, that's a lower cost gamble than the skipping the mountain would have been. Yeah, absolutely, and I think this exactly shows the mentality of the two runners, where Kyong is going to be a bit more thorough, and Vortex is going to be a little more aggressive.
And orphaning catfish, in my heart, I don't like orphaning it. Just I like the guy. He's a good catfish, but it's a very good play to make in this situation. Because with how railroady the seat has been, if you suspect that you're at an execution disadvantage, you've got to think, okay, this is an easy, low-risk way to make up some time. We get the hammer right away in Palace of Darkness.
Yeah, again, here is a save and quit faster, or is it faster to run out of pod? It looks like maybe Kyong Yang might be doing the rest of the pod checks, and maybe Vortex is thinking the same.
Yeah, I think so. There's no real reason to do anything else here. Vortex perhaps might have wanted to go check catfish, but at this point, you have to imagine they're going to use the potion to unlock the camera and skip the bow requirement for bow locked side here.
Yeah, although this stuff being out of logic, there's an argument to be made for leaving the rest of pod for when you have the bow and can actually complete the dungeon. I don't hate the checks here. You're getting some free checks with the potion. I think you can go either way on that. As expected, a couple of small keys on the bow locked side here. The front of pod, 4 of the front checks must be small keys in order for the rando logic to work out in pod. We pick up 2 of them there. We've got 3 more checks here in the front, 2 of which will be small, at least 2 of which will be small keys. And we see both the vanilla big key chest and the bridge chest containing small keys, and the Stalfo's basement containing our big key. So an all key front aside from that hammer.
Yeah, I think the broken bridge there that Vortex just checked, I don't think Kyong checked that. I think Kyong went straight over to the left side.
Yeah, he went right to the vanilla big key chest. He'll walk right by it here on his way to the back.
Yeah, Kyong knows that this is going to be another small key, so is thus very free to just walk up and grab it.
And Vortex having a little bit of trouble with the beetles there. This section can be a bit of a pain in the butt if they start crowding you.
And I imagine with that big key pickup, we're going to see the hammer jump, I think it is referred to as, where you bomb jump across this gap, pick up the big burst right away, go backwards through the maze.
Yeah, a little faster, going through the maze bottom to top and then going right to the rest of the checks in the back of pod, saving a little bit of time here. And that was a very well executed hammer jump. Or yump, if you will.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where that comes from. Other than, certain nationalities deciding that their J's sound like Y's. And so that's how they do the word jump. Yeah, so we've got yeah, not a whole lot left here in Pod. There is something in the Harmless Hellway.
And that'll be our last check in Pod here. I imagine we'll see a save and quit after that map. Yeah.
And it's just the map. So yeah, not a great dip.
No, and what it means is that our runners are going to stay in lockstep here. Without the mirror, they get sent to Link's house with the save and quit. So that, answers the question of why did we not save and quit from Catfish? Because we don't have the mirror, so we're not going to be placed on the pyramid for that save and quit from Catfish. So it would certainly have been slower. But yeah, we're gonna stay on a pretty linear seed here. Both of these guys are gonna save and quit when they're done checking Pod. We'll get Hype Cave, Stumpy into the village area.
Now we don't have the mitt, so we can't go directly to the village. But so you could make a case for going straight to the village, as right there, Hype Cave doesn't seem to contain anything of any value.
Typical Hype Cave.
I almost wonder if, suppose Vortex had gone and checked Catfish, if maybe that would have been enough incentive to perhaps dip after finding just the hammer in the front and leaving those out of logic checks. As that wouldn't have been a terrible gamble either, but I wouldn't have recommended, making both of those gambles.
Yeah, and Vortex showing a little bit of indecision there. Looked like he was debating whether to go right to the village or to go the Hype Cave route. Ending up choosing to go the Hype Cave route, so he'll be following in Kyong's footsteps here.
Yeah, so far both of the runners making the same wrong decisions.
Yeah, wrong with us knowing how the checks turn out.
Wrong in retrospect.
Right. I think that they're perfectly rational decisions to make. We just know that it's not going to lead to a whole lot.
Other than not bad plays, they're just incorrect. Oh, that's a nice gold sword early on. And we can be sure that Vortex is going to be finding that too, because you don't choose to go to Hype Cave before Village without the mitts, and not just complete these two, just because it makes things a lot cleaner later on. You could save the time of doing these checks right here, but the amount of time it can save you later, just having done them, it's just too good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see a powder check here with that hammer coming through the village before going into the Dark World. Often these early fetch quests can have some value. We'll see if the Magic Bat has anything for us. Okay, so our fetch quest leading to another fetch quest. We'll see if he follows the chain or decides to ignore it for now and head right into the Dark World.
I think at this point you head into the Dark World. You never know if maybe the mirror and mitts are going to show up and you can wrap it in with the smith chain later.
Yeah, not the fastest check, the shovel.
And certainly not to do all by itself.
But it does keep the dream alive for a little longer of the ultimate fetch quest. If we can get the powder leading to the shovel, leading to the mushroom, leading to the book, leading to something on a tablet, that would be the dream.
Looks like Vortex is losing a little bit of time here, realizing he should probably check that Magic Bat before heading into the Dark World. Better to remember it now than realize later that you can't get that cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made for leaving it for when you have the mirror and you can do Smith Chain with the Magic Bat. Although, these guys both knowing that there's a slightly higher % chance of the early fetch quests paying off versus getting those items later in the seed.
Yeah, and you never want to hope for something like Mirror to make that check easier, only to find Mirror sitting there finally, almost 2 hours into the seed. Meanwhile, Kyong, starting in on the back of Skull Woods, got that middle chest on the way in.
Yeah, at this point, with the number of hearts they have, they've got Gold Sword. This is a pretty obvious choice. Just go ahead and clear out Skull Woods. I don't know that did we get. Yeah, we did get a map check, and we know that Skull Woods is a crystal. So
yeah, the 5/6 are. You didn't notice the 5/6. I just noticed the our pendants are Pod, Skull Woods, and
Desert.
Or no, Pod, Desert, and Thieves Town. Excuse me.
Yeah, so Skullwood's coming up empty so far. If that holds, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least one of these guys full clear Green Pendant Thieves Town.
Yeah, especially with a return to Eastern Palace being inevitable at this point. Since we do have to clear it, it makes wrapping that Green Pendant check very, very nice, rather than ending up with the bow and making sense to go check Eastern earlier, go clear it, and then you're left with the question of whether or not it's worth it to go and clear the back of Thieves Town and get that Green Pendant check. If it is an important item, it's best to get that in your pocket now.
Yeah, and as you were talking, it occurs to me that there aren't a whole lot of other checks left after Skull Woods. They can peek at Bumper Ledge.
Here's that shovel.
They can do the shovel. They can do the front of Eastern, but yeah, aside from those, there's not a whole lot left that they can do.
And with the front of Eastern still being available, it really makes sense to check, to just bite the bullet and do all of Thieves Town here. Especially since Thieves Town isn't really going to be getting any faster. We do have one of the item checks in the back of Skull Woods here. So that's there's one item remaining, I believe, unless the one in the middle was an item. I don't recall.
Yeah, there must be one item left because Kyong's heading into the front of Skull Woods here. It does look like. Oh no, so Vortex didn't do Moth first. I was going to say it looked like he was making up a little bit of time there, but he just chose to do the bridge chest before doing Moth here.
And there's our second item, just 50 rupees. So Skullwood's not paying out.
Yeah, so this seed very much on rails for these guys so far. Not great news for Vortex, as we see. He's falling very slowly. I mean, he's holding it pretty close, but he is falling slowly behind Kyong.
Yeah, and a lot of that, again, is just due to the lack of options, You can choose to not do something, but with a seed this railroady, the potential cost of skipping a single check goes way up, and it's the item you need is in 1 out of, say, 6 checks rather than 1 out of 40,
Yeah, so what are the items here we're looking for that'll really break this open?
Oh, right now the big one is Hookshot, because Hammer didn't lead to a whole lot.
Yeah, the Hookshot would open up the mountain. Mitts would open up a couple of checks. Boots would open I'm sorry, not Boots. Mirror would open a couple of checks. None of which are great, by the way. I mean, the mountain is probably the best of those.
Yeah, Mirror would open up the mountain as well, since we do have the hammer. But it's, the less preferable, slower way.
Yeah, I'll be very interested. If the answer is in Eastern Palace, it'll be I'll be looking at their faces to see the reaction, because that will mean that, potentially Ago is not required. Now, they We know that they both have been taking the exact same route so far, but they don't know that. And we see the red male as the first check in Thieves Town, the second one being the big key.
Yeah, Vortex is making up a little bit of time here by not bothering to go and check bumper ledge. Obviously, that item can't be picked up either way, but sometimes it can be good to have the knowledge. Vortex decides it's not really worth that.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. You know, you may never get the cape, and so taking the time to go check bumper ledge, you know, may just be a total waste of time in the end.
There's ice rod in the front of Thieves Town, so it's necessary to go in here either way.
Yeah, so we've got 2 items in the back along with the green pendant.
Now, if you find the mirror in as the third item check, do you mirror out?
At this point, where Kyong is, I think you have to finish it out, right? You've come this far. There's 2 more items in addition to the green pendant item. I don't think you can risk leaving those behind at this point. You know, there's not much left of this dungeon.
Yeah, I guess with the gold sword in particular, none of the enemies are going to be gold sword and red mail. Bombos, an important item, kind of this railroad leading you to items that in a more generous seed you might otherwise end up orphaning in here, which is I guess a silver lining.
Yeah, so that bombos could be useful for opening Mire or TR, could be useful in Ice Pals, although not required since we have the Fire Rod already. So the one benefit of this slow progression is this might end up being a single mountain trip seed. If they can get the mitts before heading up the mountain along with the Cane of Samaria, they may be able to just clear everything out up there on their very first trip.
Yeah, they have made one trip up there, did the sort of the left half.
That's true.
But
yeah. I hardly count that as a mountain trip.
Yeah, it's about half the mountain climb.
It's like going to the foothills.
Yeah, if they don't find the mirror, then the item on the Lonely Island is going to be out. But other than that, if the mitts and hookshot or mirror show, well, if the mirror shows up, then I guess the minimum number of items required for a full mountain clear at this point would be mirror and mitts.
And the cave.
Mirror and hookshot would. Oh, well, I guess hookshot you need for hookshot cave.
Yeah, so maybe there are more items than I made it seem.
Either way, gloves and hookshot would be preferable here.
And
nothing
either way,
much
Thieves
in,
Town has nothing for them.
No progress. I mean, the bombos is handy. The ice rod is important. But yeah, it's nice that they went here now because it would have been hard to decide to come here later with those items being the ones hidden in here. But now we get to see is it the hookshot that shows up? I mean, if it is the hookshot, then again, potentially Aga not required. If it's the mirror, then Aga might be required. If the mitts are on the right side of the mountain, finding the mirror here would mean that Aghanim was still required, but finding the hookshot here would mean that he was not.
And nothing on the green pendant turn in. I'm curious. I know Vortex is a proponent of the early fetch quests generally having progression. I'll be curious to see when he finishes Thieves Town here if he goes right for that shovel spot. Which again, given the more aggressive nature, if you kind of feel like I've already skipped out on Eastern Palace, putting that off a little further kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's a rough call to make here though, just because it's not on your way anywhere. Yeah, you can see on his face there. He's trying to think of what exactly he wants to do next.
So now he's going to take the time to go up and look at bumper ledge. So, you know, that time save we said he got by not checking it, he's going to lose it here. Although no, maybe is he checking the?
Yeah,
Did he
might
not
have
check the other
abandoned.
item in the front of Skullwoods?
Yeah, he might have been in the front of Skullwoods as well.
So there's an item in Eastern Palace, just some bombs.
So we're down to 3 checks left.
Yeah, and indeed, Vortex is heading right for that shovel spot. So we got the vanilla big key here in Eastern, so Kyong's going to make a long trip to the backside of Eastern, and we've got a very nice shovel dash, and just a few bombs on the shovel spot. So disappointing for Vortex there. Real opportunity to make up a whole lot of time. So it looks like the answer is going to be our Eastern Palace big chest. We'll see what the item is that unlocks progression.
And again, you'd love to see it be the hook shot, but you're hoping it's the mirror, because if it's the hook shot, then your opponent may have decided to do this before Aga and not needed to. If it's the mirror, then you still need the hammer in conjunction to do anything else with it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Vortex going to check that orphaned catfish play. I don't love this. You know, you've made the decision to leave this behind. You've got potentially 3 items in Eastern Palace. Probably better to leave it alone.
What did we see in Eastern Palace?
We had the mirror in the big chest of Eastern Palace.
No, not big chest. Big vanilla big key chest. The last chest that was opened, Kyong found the compass in the big chest itself. So.
I see. Okay, so there must have been 2 items left, which is why he went right to
yeah.
vanilla big key chest. I was just so enthralled by the shovel dash on Vortex's side.
Yeah. So once again, that's kind of the problem with these seeds is it these linear seeds very heavily favor the player with better execution for obvious reasons, but it also sort of precludes the possibility of making up time with aggressive plays. Because by their nature, railroady seeds end up not having opportunities for aggressive plays to actually make up any time.
Yeah, there's a couple of minor places here where there was an opportunity to be more aggressive, as we talked about, and we'll see. There may still be some later. You know, it's possible that we need Ether to get into Meyer or T-Rock, or we need the flute. You know, and those are a couple of items that could be buried pretty much anywhere. So even once these guys get the hook shot in the mitts and things open up, we could still have a pretty long hunt for 1 or 2 items.
Yeah, the flippers are going to be a big point, because that's going to block access to Swamp. The flute is going to be required for Misery Mire. And the Cane of Samaria is the last thing we need to clear Turtle Rock. Again, with the mitts for access.
Yeah, so this is a feels bad seed, right? You know, we're at 45 minutes. You've got a crystal and a pendant and a fairly long list of things you need for go mode still, with not a lot of places left to look for them.
You've got red mail and gold sword though.
Yeah, it's just feeling confident on the execution side of things, just not feeling super good about how quickly you're completing dungeons here. Because with this progression being in Eastern Palace, there's got to be the thought in the back of both of these guys' minds that, hey, this has been available from the beginning. My opponent could have checked Eastern before doing Aga and had that mirror, and maybe there's progression in K45, or
Yeah.
maybe they went up the mountain and the answer's up there as soon as they left pod.
So Aga was still required because you can't really do anything with the mirror without Dark World access or the hammer. But and we didn't see anything, and there are the mitts in Spiral Cave. I wonder if we'll see Vortex. No, so we found the mirror in the compass chest, I think, the one directly to the east of the big chest room.
Yeah, I think you're right
Vortex
there.
Already has it. Of course, without the big key, you're gonna want to go back here for the big chests. And you know there's 2 items left, so you're going to want to open the big chest. So there's not really an opportunity to leave early from this.
Yeah, and you don't save time on the second dip of Eastern. This was a forced double dip of Eastern, so at the point you get that mirror, you realize there was no avoiding coming here twice. And so the dip of Eastern doesn't feel bad. What feels bad is maybe not doing that dip of Eastern earlier. While being logical, it still doesn't feel great. And we've got Hookshot in Paradox, so now Kyong is going to be able to clear out most of Dark Death Mountain here. With the exception of Turtle Rock, he doesn't have an invulnerability item to clear out Spike Cave, although I don't remember what's in the other bottle. He may have something that allows him to clear out Spike Cave. Not a whole lot of expression from Kyong. He's been pretty focused. Seems pretty stoic throughout this siege. Even when getting items of note, not a whole lot of reaction. It seems like he's just doing work here.
Yeah, and on the other hand, this is not a great situation to be in for Vortex, because the corners you can cut, they're not there, because he's gonna get the mitts and the hook shot too, and it's like, well, he can't not check all of Dark Death Mountain as well. And just Kyong having the presence of mind to mirror back to the Dark World, or mirror back to the Light World, excuse me, before saving and quitting. Something that it wouldn't be unusual for Vortex to forget about, having cleared Aga and having the mirror, a save and quit in the Dark World will bring you to the Pyramid, which is not where you want to be right now.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a very logical Smith chain check coming from Kyong.
Yeah, so after getting those mitts and finishing Dark Death Mountain, that's going to be the point where we might start to see a little more divergence. Because the number of checks that are now available, it has sort of ballooned, and the areas of the world that they're in is a lot more spread out.
Yeah, and due to the nature of when they got these items, those checks are pretty well spread out. We see Kyong going for Graveyard Ledge and King's Tomb here. You could go down and do Smith Chain. You've got K45. You could check the front of Swamp Palace, which would be kind of a Hail Mary. Oh, and we've got the Samaria here on Graveyard Ledge. That could be tricky.
And it's a good call to do this first, I think, on Kyong's side, because he does have the shovel to route in with the Smith Chain. But going for that right away is going to make these 2 checks a little bit tougher to get to. So it makes sense, especially if you're confident in your execution over your opponent, that at this point you've built up a little bit of time and you can sort of get these done relatively for free. And then here afterwards, it's not a huge trek to go back to the village and do the smith chain now.
Yeah, meanwhile, we see Vortex picking up his mitts. He'll pick up his hook shot momentarily, clear out the rest of Dark Death Mountain.
So at this point, we're still hunting for the flute, we're still hunting for the flippers, and we're still hunting for a bow.
Yeah, and any one of those 3 items will open up a new crystal dungeon for them to clear.
And so as Vortex is finishing up the light Death Mountain, Kyong is firmly entrenched here in the smith sequence. So it's starting to look like no matter what Vortex decides to do here afterwards, Kyong is going to already have done it.
Yeah, that lead growing a little bit more minute by minute.
Now, Vortex does go and take the portal on top of Turtle Rock. Kyong did not. Kyong just sort of went over there and peeked in the Dark World afterwards and then mirrored and went back. So that's, you know, it's handy for Vortex. I imagine Vortex is planning on maybe going in and dipping Turtle Rock, or I suppose Vortex would clear Turtle Rock now if the Cane of Samaria were to show up in Hookshot Cave here.
Yeah, and I imagine that was the thinking in opening the portal, that if you get lucky and Super Bunny or Hookshot has your cane, you can go in and just clear out Turtle Rock.
And Kyong is actually losing a little bit of time on this purple chest turn-in, since he had the shovel to check as well. He decides to jump off after K45 and check it that way. Now, Kyong having, you know, cleaned up all that Dark World, we may well see Vortex potentially get something going if he decides to prioritize getting some of these dungeons cleared. But right now it's looking like the biggest play is finding that cane, because that's going to open up Turtle Rock.
So, interestingly, I'm not sure where.
I think what he did
up to Turtle Rock.
I think that's what Kyong's doing, and I think what happened to Vortex is he saved and quit after Hookshot Cave, and as I mentioned earlier, it took him to the pyramid rather than Link's house, or rather than the regular Light World save and quit screen. So he's probably deciding to make the best of it and check these into Village of Outcasts since he has that Hookshot.
Which is great news for Vortex, as he's going to get that Cane of Samaria. I'm a little curious as to why Kyong would be heading back up the mountain to do Turtle Rock with, I guess for Swamp Owls we need the flipper, so this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's either this or ice. And
Ice Palace would be out of logic.
Yeah. And given how many things are going to be in Turtle Rock here, it's, you kind of just have to.
So another chance for time save here if Vortex decides after he sees this cane that, you know what, I'm gonna forget about the Smith sequence, I'm just gonna go up and do the crystal that I can clear now. He's
Yeah,
thinking about it, and he may be going for it.
Yep, I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, so a great time save. This is exactly the sort of situation that Vortex is looking for. Let's carve out some checks that, sure, maybe it might cost me if it's got something important, but I know I have to do Turtle Rock, so let's get that off the table.
Yeah, and sort of paying attention to what's been showing up, it really makes a lot of sense to imagine that something would be up here in these Turtle Rock checks. Just with the possibility that you've got that cane and you got that early fire rod and that early ice rod. Those and you had the medallion already. Just all of that adds up to a lot of suspicion that something is going to be in Turtle Rock. Since you have to do Turtle Rock anyway, is it really worth making sure you're thorough and do Smith Chain? Not when you're an hour into the seed and it's been so linear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's an art to reading the seed. I understand why Kyong wants to be more thorough and do all of the checks here, and he's still ahead. But it also absolutely makes sense to beeline for Turtle Rock as soon as you get that Cane of Samaria.
Yeah, and if you think you're the faster player, then in this situation you 100% go ahead and clear out all of those overworld checks, because then it makes the seed very easy to read.
Yeah, and as we knew it would, Turtle Rock has the next item of progression with the flute in Chain Chomp's room.
Yeah, the play after this obviously becomes Mire. I imagine that's where we'll see Vortex go next. Depending on whether or not the flippers show up. If the flippers show up, then it's you're kind of in go mode. You probably
need a bow still, but
well, yeah, I guess. But if flippers show up, you probably don't do Mire next, because you still might need ether for that. So you'd rather do something else first in case ether shows up and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, easy enough to go to Mire area with the flute and the mirror. It's fairly low cost to just check Mire Shed, see what the medallion is, potentially dip into Mire. You've got everything you need to beat it at this point.
Yeah, if flippers showed up, I might dip into Ice Palace first. I might still hold off on Swamp, but I probably check Mire area after clearing out Ice Palace. The thought being that a go mode Ice Palace isn't as much faster than an on-go mode Ice Palace versus Swamp Palace. You save a lot of time in go mode Swamp versus a full clear. So it would be nice to find all of your go mode before you do Swamp, if you can. But
yeah, that's a fair point, but that's also an argument for doing Mire area, at least checking the shed and seeing the medallion requirements. So if when you go to Ice Palace, if you find a bow, you'll know for sure whether you're in go mode or not.
On the other hand, if this becomes a flippers hunt, that's that's sort of the flip side of taking those gambles and carving out some of those checks. Is Vortex is still going to have Smith Chain on the table, and depending on how hidden some of these end up being, it might be very tempting for Vortex to go and re-lose that time that he saved.
Yeah, Smith Chain versus Mire, that can be a tough call, particularly with flute and mirror. He's going to be right there turning in the mirror already. I wouldn't be surprised to see him check Smith Chain. Now, granted, he'll do it faster than Kyong did, since he does have the mirror and doesn't need to go do shovel. But it'll still be a loss of time based on his current situation.
If I know Vortex, I would imagine that we would see Mire before Smith Chain, especially skipping Smith Chain and going up to Turtle Rock, finding the flute. You'd take that as heavy indication that going to Mire next would be the correct play, if nothing else shows up here in Turtle Rock.
And nothing else has shown up here in Turtle Rock so far. We've got one more check on Trinex. Should be a fairly quick Trinex fight with Gold Sword, Red Mail.
And that's another thing that's nice for Vortex is knowing that the potential to lose a whole lot of time on this Trinex fight isn't going to be nearly as great as it would be otherwise.
Those hammer pegs, on the other hand, they could lose you some time. Dancing around a little bit on Vortex there. And don't blink or you're going to miss this Trinex fight from Kyong.
And Kyong gets the 1 cycle, but misses the 0 cycle.
Yeah, 0 cycle is super tight timing. It's very hard. A cold sword makes it easier, but last phase goes down. No issues there. We'll see what Trinex has. And it's just a piece of heart. So Meyer seems to be the answer. We'll see Kyong turn in that flute and head right to the Meyer area.
And we might see a desert play, depending on what we find in Meyer. Because Meyer itself, so the Meyer area outside, we've got 2 checks. Kyong hasn't looked at Desert Ledge. Vortex did look at it earlier when he went to check Agina. Kyong went straight there, so Kyong is gonna lose a marginal amount of time there. But I wonder what we're seeing Kyong check here.
He's going to turn in his flute. So
oh,
yeah,
right, you do have to activate it. I forgot about that.
We may see the front of Desert before Meyer, because it is faster to get those 2 items out of Desert than it is to get the 2 items out of Meyer.
Now Meyer we do have to do anyway. Yeah, but at this point, there's literally nothing we can do here, other than go to Meyer.
Yeah, Meyer or Sequence Break Ice Palace, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you know that there's got to be progression in Desert for Meyer or Meyer area.
And it looks like Quake, unless I saw incorrectly.
No, yeah, I think that's Quake. And we did get a 0 cycle on Vortex's side. Very nicely done. And not even checking checkerboard or Desert Ledge, front of Desert. He's going right into Meyer.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this makes sense. You know, even if you're confident in your execution, at this point, you know, you can check those afterwards if you really need to. But if you find what you're looking for in Meyer, you just go for it.
Yeah, the question will be, if there's potentially an item in cutscene chest, do you skip that, or do you just full clear Meyer?
And as always, that depends on what else you find, but...
Vortex remembering to mirror there before the save and quit this time. Last time, we'll really have to worry about that. Hopefully, with a flute.
So far, we've got 1 small key in Meyer. Still a potential for a God Meyer, though I imagine we'd still see some checks. If it was a God Meyer, then we might see Vortex keep going. We do have a God Meyer.
Yeah, and Kyong's going to take the gamble and go right to Vidi.
Yeah, and I mean, this makes sense. This isn't even a particularly aggressive play. It's a somewhat aggressive play, but, you know, there's only, again, 2 items in Meyer proper. If one of them's on the boss, and it's, you know, one of the important ones you're looking for, hey, why not save the time? A re-dip in for more items isn't that costly.
Yeah, the only way this becomes very costly is if both items in Meyer are hard required, and you pick up one on the boss and then go elsewhere looking for the other.
Yeah. The potential for it to not work out is not terribly great. Nice spooky there from Kyong, displacing the hitbox of the fire rod to activate the switch in the next room.
And with Gold Sword, this will be a very quick video fight.
Vortex going for Checkerboard Cave.
Yeah, Vortex, knowing that, having already seen the Meyer Medallion and beaten Zero Rock, he knows he does not need that ether. And we're going to have Kyong going back in, so, you know, a little bit of an opportunity for time save for Vortex if he decides to clear Meyer straight away.
Yeah, at this point, if a bow shows up, how heavily do you weigh the possibility of a head seed? Because if our next progression is bow, that allows us to collect all 3 of the pendants.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know,
And we're not going to have an excuse to go back up that way because Skull Woods has already been cleared.
Yeah, with the flute in the mirror, I think you just continue on, check the couple checks in the front of desert. In that case, go over to Eastern, and we know that there's another item on Armos Nights. I think you end up full clearing. Yeah, you can come back for desert. It's not going to cost you much time. I don't remember if there's an item on Helmasaur, but that'd be interesting.
There is. There must be, because the last item we checked was the map. That was the last thing we found, and if there isn't an item on Helmasaur, then there would have been no point in opening the chest that contained the map, because, you know, knowing that the map and something else was left. So it must be an item on Helmasaur.
That logic checks out, and we see Vortex heading right back to Biddy, just like Kyong did. Yeah, so I think in that case, desert is fast enough. There is the bow. Just as you hinted it may be. I think you just continue on. You may just go right to Eastern Mounds.
Bow and flippers. Like you said, if Vortex dips out after that bow, that's basically game over at this point.
Yeah, so that puts Kyong in go mode at about 108.5.
Yeah, about one of the only things that can really save Vortex here is you know, GT routing and potentially finding the silvers could help.
Yeah, although if you're rooting for Vortex, you want Vortex to pick up the 2 required items here to be able to go mode everything else. Yeah, he may make some additional checks hoping for silvers. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, almost nothing you'd make anyway. The only place I'd expect to see him make extra checks would be in Swamp Palace. You know, if you're full go moding it, you know, you skip stuff like Waterfall Chest, the Diver Down chests. If you'd like to make up some time, you might open those thinking, you know, I'm not going to lose the race off of opening these, and if it silvers, it might win me the race. But that's about the only thing I can think of that you'd go out of your way and check extra. Nothing in ice. You know, maybe Icebreaker chest or something.
Yeah, there's not a lot of chests you would check on the way. GT routing could end up giving one of them the silvers, but at this point, I think that Kyong's lead is big enough that even with GT routing and picking up silvers, I think Vortex is far enough behind that we would need to see a mistake from Kyong. I think the lead is big enough to account for both of those factors.
And what this is speaking to me is I'm hoping that Vortex is aware of this and knows that I'm possibly commentating this match right now, and he decides to Galaxy Brain Tile Room for me. He knows how much I love that play, And it's one of the biggest time saves he could potentially make here is
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Tyrone and finding the key there.
If you hit that long shot and Tyroom's the answer and you do it first, that makes up an awful lot of time.
But you know, the flip side of that is if he doesn't think he's behind enough that he might be able to win the race without doing that, then there's no way you ever go for it.
Yeah, although like we said, you know, with all of the safeties early on, you know, you can't really expect your opponent to have made any
he's
mistakes.
making a different gamble. He's making the gamble on cutscene chest. This is a safer gamble. You know, hoping that you have to go here anyway and hoping he can get it out of the way early. Unfortunately, Kyong didn't have to go here at all.
Yeah, so we know this is just more time loss for Vortex. It's a reasonable decision if you feel like you might be behind.
And Kyong misses the 0 cycle on Argus there. Not a huge deal, though. Hey, you can see Vortex shaking his head. That play did not work out for him. And now the issue is, does he decide to dip out after finding the bow?
If he's feeling enough pressure, he might, and that would be, you know, at that point, I think we would not see Vortex finish the seed, because I think that if he dips
not even
out,
Tyler would save him there.
we see Kyong having dispatched Argus, heading into Ice Palace to take on Cold Stare in a couple of minutes here. This should be relatively quick. Go mode Ice Palace. We're just gonna Icebreaker our way back.
Yeah, and this is nice. It's nice that the other item is here. Just because there's a lot less of a chance that Vortex is going to skip it there. If you know your last two, especially if you've checked cutscene chest, if you know your 2 items are right there, you go and pick them both up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we're gonna have Vortex trailing behind here, doing Swamp Palace, I imagine, into Ice Palace, and then over to Eastern to finish that one.
Not sure why he's taking this route to Swamp Palace. I just saw him shake his head. I don't think he knows why he took this route to Swamp Palace. A couple extra screen transitions there. This is just, you know, the pressure of being in these matches in a tournament or in the league. It can do weird things to your brain. So while we have a minute, while these guys are making their way through Goat Mode dungeons, give them a follow. Hopefully, since this is pre-recorded, someone in chat can do the command to show these runners Twitch channels. You know, they've both gotten through a lot of matches to get to this point, so regardless of the outcome, they both deserve some extra views, some extra follows. Head on over to their channels. I am confident that they both produce great content. You'll enjoy watching them. Wow, that was a very fast Cold Stare fight.
Yeah, Gold Sword will do that.
Yeah, so on the Swamp Palace entry, we have about a 5-minute difference between Vortex and Kyong.
Yeah, and again, about the only thing that could possibly save Vortex here is Like you need not even and perhaps full left from Kyong and Ganon's Tower, and Hope Room into Tile Room for Vortex, with Silvers being in Hope Room and Big Key being in Tile Room. That's about the only thing I can think of that I could reliably say could give him a chance here.
Yeah, I think even in that case, we've got. Yeah, I think we would see Kyong picking up the Silvers.
Yeah, and I mean it would be a close race even then.
Yeah, and while we have a minute, big thank you to our restreamer Fiesel and to our tracker Art. The tracker can be very finicky, and yet I have not noticed any issues with it throughout this. A fantastic job keeping us up to date on the status, along with what chat can't see, but some helpful tips to us in our private chat here, keeping us honest from the comms perspective.
Yeah, nice point of order. Vortex did get the 0 cycle on Argus, so GG for that.
Yeah, that's not easy. That is not at all easy, and he's been pulling that off more often lately, so great job on that fight. Saves a very small amount of time there, but rack them up as you can get them.
And it's nice. It's a nice booster. Towards the end of these tense races. Nailing something like that feels good. It gets your confidence up a little bit. If you miss something like that, then that can sort of start a spiral where you start messing up stuff that you rarely, if ever, miss.
Wow, and speaking of missing, Kyong missed a bow shot on that quick kill for Armos, manages to get the recovery and still take down Armos without that last knight turning red. Very impressive. I think we're going to see a lot of high-level execution throughout the rest of this tournament now that we've made it to brackets.
And so we do have our big key guessing game. So Kyong is on his way to the tower here. I don't know if we're going to be running the game or not, but you can still guess if you'd like. Which of 22 checks is it going to be?
Get your guesses into chat. You can earn some fake internet points and fake internet fame. I'm going to go with 19.
And my guess is always going to be, well, if it were Vortex entering first, I would be hoping for 3. In this case, I'm going to be hoping for a nice fat 22 for Kyong. No bias.
Yeah, we've got our tracker who has weighed in with a 20 guess, so we'll see. We've got our own pre-recorded game we can get going here, and the rest of chat can have their live restream game.
So there are a couple schools of thought as to which direction you like to go in Ganon's Tower. One route that I've seen a lot more of in recent days has been the starting left side, doing the Stalfos room, and then heading right side. What that does is it gets some of the left side done and guarantees you a small key to continue on the right side, without having to hope you find one in Hope Room, which is part of why it gets that name. Another common route is Hope Room into left. We've seen 1 check so far, and we're about to see numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 up here. And we'll see where Kyong decides to go after this. Equipping that mirror, I imagine we'll see a mirror to the front and across to the left side. And by left, I mean right.
I can't count, so I am not going to give anybody a hard time about mixing up left and right. Half magic, a nice little safety to pick up in Ganon's tower. That'll make a silverless Ganon fight a little bit easier.
Now, a small key in Hope Room there does make it a little less likely for Vortex to decide to make the tile room play. Just because it opens up the possibility of going full right away. Which, you know, if that ends up paying off, you know, your opponent decides to go full left, that can save you a lot of time anyway, and you don't want to throw that away with a hopeful tile room play necessarily. But that was I forget how to count now myself. But I believe we're at, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 there. So if you guessed above 11, you're doing all right. And here we see something that has sort of been recently considered a point of contention. The mirroring after that is sort of an unorthodox version of the original development of this you know, left side first, then right side strategy. You can choose to go full right and through Armos, which saves you time if the item is in one of those 4 spots in the chest right before the Ice Armos fight, or an Ice Armos. The rest of the time, you're more likely to find it if you grab the key mirror and go left side. Especially with deep, big key routings like this, there's a lot that goes into Ganon's tower, and what the best way to go at any given moment is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, which rooms you've practiced more often that you're comfortable with. You know, for myself, I've timed a lot of different routes through Ganon's tower, and, you know, based on how I'm feeling, I know what route is going to give me the fastest time on average, versus front loading a lot of checks. You know, if I feel like I need to catch up, I might do a route that front loads more checks versus your Hail Mary, which is your tile room play, right?
And I believe that brings us up to 16, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm terrible at counting, but I will take your word for it.
At this point, I very well might be. But if I remember right, Compass Room brought us... No, that'll be 17, because I forgot the Fire Snake chest, so that's 17. So there's 5
that makes sense, because we got
remaining.
5 left.
It's looking riper and riper for Vortex to make up some time with the tile room play here, but
yeah, we've gone from 4% up to 20%.
$25. Of course, Vortex has no way of knowing this, but we're at the point now. Vortex heading up the mountain himself for that GT play could potentially take the lead here when it comes to this big key, if it's in tile room and he finds it in there.
Yeah, I think he's still going to take a little bit of time to get into
Yeah,
Ganon's tower. So Kyong would still have a little lead, and here it is behind Ice Armos.
Yeah.
So rip the tile room dream.
That would be 20.
So our restreamer Art nailing it with the 20. GG there. Too bad you don't even get the fake internet points. But you get points in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's pretty well determined who's going to be winning this race. There's almost nothing Vortex could do. Kyong would have to majorly mess up this Ganon fight in a big way, which is a little bit hard to do with, you know, with Cape Half Magic, Gold Sword.
Yeah, you're hoping for like a random power outage, which is not something you ever want to see here, right? That's the most likely way for Vortex to prevail, is if, you know, somehow Kyong's machine shuts down. I don't really see, you know, I think even multiple Ganon falls would end up with Kyong still ahead here.
Yeah, Vortex could make up a little bit of time going full right, but
yeah, but I think it's around a 6-minute difference, so it's not.
Yeah.
It is not by any means a blowout, but it's a big enough lead to be comfortable for Kyong, although he has no idea at this point.
We do see Vortex go right side first. And we'll see if he makes the tile room play. It'll be disappointing to see, but yeah. And at that point, it's like when you see the key, like I was saying earlier, it's a little greedy to go for the tile room play. May as well hope that maybe you're not that far behind, and that they made the more common left side play and ended up getting to the full right side a little bit later.
Yeah, and with things like, Samaria on Graveyard Ledge, Vortex found that pretty quickly after having access to Graveyard Ledge, and so he may be feeling like, hey, there's a shot I'm ahead here. There's a world in which Kyong skipped Graveyard Ledge, went down, did Smith Chain, and last location that Samaria.
Yeah, and in that world, but it's a big mistake to go for that tile room play. We might see Kyong. Nah, Kyong isn't interested in any of these chests. I don't blame him. You have red mail, you have gold sword. The silvers aren't really going to save you that much time in this scenario. We might see the post Moldorm chest. Oh, we see that one. Which is if you're going to check one of them, that's not often the one you see. And meanwhile, we see Vortex deciding to not go full right. Again, a very reasonable play. But even so, even though this race is all but decided at this point, this is still a very close race, all things considered. Given how linear the seed was, there weren't a lot of options at any point, really.
No, that's what's most interesting to me here is, there weren't a lot of points at which you could diverge, and even if you did, the seed really bottlenecked you back towards where progression was. Every step of the way, there might have been a handful of checks you could do, but eventually you're bottlenecked back towards where the progression was, which is nice in a way. It makes for a very consistent time, but definitely skews towards a better executor.
Honestly, probably the worst mistake you could make in this seed is doing that Eastern play before clearing Aga 1. Getting that mirror early would open up a lot of options and sort of make the seed a little trickier to read.
It might be, although that also has the potential for getting into Turtle Rock.
You could end up with that
for Dark Death Mountain.
Could end up with that Cane of Samaria earlier. But Kyong heading into the Ganon fight, probably about a minute or so before Vortex picks up the big key.
Yeah, with Gold Sword, getting the one-on-one is basically free on Ganon here. You just need 6 slashes in each of the first 2 phases.
Especially with half magic and the cape. Almost anybody could get that one-on-one with the Gold Sword. And depending on how quickly Kyong finishes this fight off, we may see Vortex, throw in the towel. At this point, knowing that the race is still undecided and he's in GT, it's a nervous position to be in. And while I'm usually a proponent of finishing off your race, I wouldn't blame anybody in this situation for it's like, okay, now it's over.
Yeah, on the other hand, you're trying to put on a good show for the viewers. You're in the climb before your opponent finishes. It's nice to finish things out, just to have that closure. He put a lot of effort into this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised to see him finish it out.
Yeah, and I believe this is only game 1, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
This is round 1 of the tournament, yeah. Which is a best of 1, so this will be
okay.
This will be the end for Vortex. I think the entire brackets are best of 1, although the I'm not entirely sure on the semifinal and final. But I know at least the first 3 rounds are best of 1, and are in fact are going to be a lot of matches because rounds 1, 2, and 3 are going to be completed here today and tomorrow.
Yeah, and Vortex, I can't speak for Kyong, but Vortex does have the open league, the open bracket of the Links to the Past Randomizer League that he's got a team participating in, so he's by no means done with things after this race. He's gonna be busy for quite some time yet.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Kyong finishing off Ganon with an official completion time of 1:31:17. Get your GGs in chat. Kyong is moving on to round 2 of the SG Live Link to the Past Randomizer tournament. Congrats to Kyong.
Yeah, just a well-played seed all around. Even with those extra checks, Vortex still hasn't done the Smith chain. In that that just speaks to how much execution in a seed like this, especially, can really put you ahead. All of the nothing major in terms of route was different. It was just Kyong got it done faster.
Yeah, and not even, a lot of times when you think about time loss due to execution, you think about boss fights, right? You think about low percent things, but in this case, Kyong, a lot of the time gains he got was just by being cleaner in overworld movement and on clearing rooms that you might not ordinarily put a lot of thought into optimizing. Just all around a little bit crisper.
And that's it's a very good. This race in particular is a very good thing to watch if you wonder sometimes why some of those little things could matter. Because Vortex's play was not poor by any stretch of the term. He got a lot of difficult things. He got the 1 cycle on 0 cycle, I think, on both Argus and Trinex, which are not trivial tricks, and are both boss fights that can take a lot more time. But even with all of that, the difference just ended up coming out of those little movement mistakes. The fact that he took a couple extra bombs there, moving around obstacles suboptimally.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between Kyong, who's, in terms of the NMG speedrun, is a 125 player versus Vortex, who is a 136 PB in NMG, right? So NMG being really your sort of the benchmark for pure execution in the game. Kyong has, I think, more hours. But Vortex, as we said very early on, he's been putting in the hours, and he's going to catch up. He's going to close that gap.
Yeah, he didn't really play this game much until earlier this year. So it's to put up a showing like this against somebody with a sub 130 time on the No Major Glitches run. It's a very impressive feat.
Yeah, I think the phrase Vortex used earlier today was playing with house money. Coming into this match, he was extremely pleased with his performance in the tournament, as I'm sure Kyong is. But Kyong probably has expectations of making it further in the bracket, whereas Vortex is happy to be here, happy to put on a show for us. He's heading into his Ganon fight. He's going to finish off this seed. Let's root him on here.
Yeah, and I know that Vortex isn't the type to not want to know whether or not the race is over. At this point, he's seen it. He's seen that his opponent has finished, and he's gonna finish this off anyway.
He's doing it for you, chat.
And it's some nice silverless practice. He gets these gets to practice his dash pokes. honestly a really nice Ganon fight to have for practice. You know, you have especially for the silverless fight, because you have the shorter silverless fight versus Master Sword. You have the red mail for safety. You can practice some of those other strats early on, and then you can hopefully get some of those triples in the fourth phase. Something
Yeah,
that
14 hearts, you've
barely
got
can
half
make.
magic.
And you know, getting those triples in a silverless fight is one of those things that can really make a top level race, make or break it. If it's still close going into Ganon, if you get a couple triples and your opponent doesn't, then you very well know what to work on. Switching to that Fire Rod to hopefully get them off. Fire Rod's the only way to get that off, because you have to have the sword charged as you relight the torch. There's not enough time to charge the sword 3 times before, you know, he's not vulnerable anymore. But getting a couple there.
Yeah, some of these patterns are easier for triples than others, but you know, he seems to be getting a couple of triples in here. Just a few more hits left. And that'll do it. Just the fanfare left. Get your GGs prepped. And get your GGs in chat for Vortex, finishing with an official time of 1:37:44. Yeah, so big thanks to our crew here. Thanks to chat for hanging out with us. I wish I could have seen all of your snark. Thanks to our restreamer Feasel and our tracker Art. Thank you, Esmar. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was an interesting race. It wasn't as exciting as some other races have been, but it's always nice to see something different than, you know, oh, this person found the right item first. It's always educational. I always like to look for what's educational about this race. I feel like it's a good way to get value out of any race you watch, honestly.
Yeah, and in a David versus Goliath matchup like this one was, you know, the reality is Goliath is going to win a lot of those matchups, right? You know, the reason David versus Goliath is a great story is because it's not going to happen very often that the underdog is going to prevail, and that was the case here today. But you know, both of these runners, I'm sure, are proud of how they've done. You know, we've got some lessons learned here. You know, both of them are looking ahead to what's next. Kyong for the rest of the SG Live tournament, and Vortex looking forward to, you know, the league and the main tournament. Perhaps, you know, he can get back to the grind and hopefully be ready to put up an equally good or better showing in the main tournament sometime in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and coming within a 10 minutes in a race like this is, you know, that's something you're happy with. You know, I'm happy on ladder if I get a race that's that close.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, you know, the difference in their NMG times is greater than the difference in this seed, which, you know, speaks well to Vortex performing tonight. You know, this kind of meets the expectations, and you know, we'll move on to the next one, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Kyong can do in round 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's gonna about wrap it up for us here tonight. It's tonight right now. I don't know when it is when you're watching this, but any last words, McMonkey?
No, just you know, if you have a chance, actually go and click the links here and give a follow to our runners, give a follow to our crew. Everybody is volunteering their own time to do this. A lot of work goes into a tournament like this, and you know, it'd be great if you can show some love. It's just a couple of clicks. Head on over and enjoy the rest of the tournament.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone.